Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's that time of the week. It is time for some more CTC once again. It is stage 3 of this second season. We arrive at Spain for round 7. And as always, I am joined by Matteo. Now, Matteo, are you looking forward to another stage, another round of CTC?
Of course, it is already stage number 3. The stakes are higher than ever. We are at Spain, and of course, this is going to be a super interesting race. The championship battle is intensifying. The teams are giving it their all. And now it's just the beginning more, as we are now at this new stage. The stage is called Europe. We start off, of course, today at Spain. Next week we have Imola, and the week after we end off at Austria. So 3 tracks, great for overtaking more as we get started with the pre-race. What do you think is going to happen today? Do you think Talent Factory will pull away, or do you think Outplayed Racing could get the upper hand, which we haven't seen them do for quite a while now?
Yeah, I think Talent Factory have been on a bit of a streak ever since round 2. Obviously, last time out, getting once again another double podium P1 for Rudy and P3 for Legend. OP had a bit of a weaker weekend last time out. They did have OP Gian in P2, but Nando struggling at Belgium. I think he finished down around P7. But there's every chance that they can improve, and I'm sure they definitely will. Obviously, we have stage 3, 4, and 5. We've got 9 rounds, including this one, so plenty of time for Outplayed Racing to catch up. But today at Spain, if I had to guess, I think we are going to be seeing Talent Factory Legend and Talent Factory Rudy both jumping back into the Scarlet Ferrari, and Talent Factory, like I've said before, they're sticking with what they know. They know that Rudy and Legend are extremely talented drivers, and that's why they're showing up every week. But we have Kian and Robbie showing up this week. Robbie is the only driver outside of the Talent Factory team to win a race. So I think if OP has the best chance of winning a race, it could be with Robbie on their team.
Yeah, of course. And OP did talk about taking it to the next level this stage, and they were looking to use Asicome. And an interesting fact, OP are using their academy, and Asicome would have been the first driver who's out of that academy, who's in the main team, which they would use in this event. So it does show that they're starting to really take matters into their own hands here, get the best drivers, and get ready to prioritize this event, because they really do need to up their game. I've been looking through, they haven't won as a team any race so far. So they've been there, but they've never really gotten their moment in the starlight, in the sunshine. And hopefully if they can do that here at Spain, of course, or at Barcelona, the sun will be shining, and hopefully the OP team could get their win. Of course, they are also going with people they know. So honestly, I think OP and TF both have a very strong lineup. But more, let's go back down the order. Neverlast Racing, they are getting extremely close to Outplayed Racing. The point difference there is only 12 points more. Do you think that Neverlast Racing could get past Outplayed this stage?
I think there's definitely every chance, as for quite a few rounds now, it's been Never Last Racing who, along with Talent Factory, have been one of the most consistent teams on the grid. They've gotten both drivers into the top 6 in pretty much every round. We've seen Never Last Racing get in that top 6 many, many times, and even winning back in Bahrain. If you remember that far back, I know I definitely forgot that one. But Never Last Racing, they've shown they can win races in the early stages, but ever since stage 2, the start of stage 3, they've just had the same pace as Outplayed and can't seem to keep up with Talent Factory. So I think Never Last Racing, they're always going to be challenging OP, but just that little bit further away. And I think it's a bit like Never Last Racing are trying to catch up to OP, trying to beat them in the championship. And OP is trying to do the same with Talent Factory. They're trying to get their drivers to the pace of the Talent Factory pairing to try and get that number 1 position. But like you said, I think the gap is now about 50 points between Talent Factory and OP. But circling back to your question, yes, I think Neverlast Racing could definitely overtake OP in this round. But OP is not a team to be reckoned with. They're extremely strong with extremely quick drivers, and who knows, it could even be going for the race win today. But we're going to see how that all unfolds in the race. But maybe before we look at the race, how about we talk a little bit about qualifying and the race lineups for some teams. If we take a look at the lineups here, we see a lot of familiar faces. For the BNLRE team, we have Sanchowitz returning once again, and also Dennis hopping into the car again. Talent Factory remaining the same. For OP, it's Kian and Robbie. The McLaren team of, I think that's ET8, have actually got a debut driver here. It's Janu, who was actually the pole man in PSGL's Formula 5, so he's definitely got pace in qualifying. We could see him up there today. For Ace, we have Tom and Grosjean returning once again. For the one team, we have Hadrich and also YCN. I think this could actually be his first round in this championship, so we'll have to keep a close eye on him. For Ecos, we have Mentos for the first time, and also Ray G coming in. So Ecos using 2 debut drivers for this event. We'll have to see how that turns out for them. For NLR, we have Debo for the first time and a familiar face of Axelino. In TTG, we have just Patuxai today, so we don't, sadly, TTG couldn't get 2 of their drivers to come as one of them had to drop out last minute. And then for the newly branded Scuderia Rosso team, we have Max Gross and Tim, both new drivers to this competition. So after having a look at the team lineups today, there's quite a few new faces, isn't there? Do you think we could possibly see some surprises in the grid today?
Of course, circling back to NLR, they are using Axelino, and I do remember that yesterday in EML he did win Premier 1, and that is a very strong competition, of course. So I do think NLR have the facilities this race to up their game and to challenge with both TF and OP. So this is certainly going to be interesting, of course. And contest of speed. Mentos, I know that he is very fast, and of course using 2 drivers, also upping their game. It seems everyone getting a lot more competitive, so this is going to be huge entertainment. And Ecos Chris, driver 2, seems to have a Scuderia Rosso username, so that may be something interesting. Not sure what's happening there. BNLRE, Talent Factory, OP, all sticking with what they know works, and of course the old saying, if it works, do not fix it. So we'll just have to see how these drivers do, of course. Scuderia Rosso, though, they do have 2 new drivers. They're not just new to the competition. I think they've recently joined the team as well. And Scuderia Rosso, of course, we were talking a lot about them last race, about how they need to get close to TF and OP to up their game and perhaps even close in on NLR. So I think this is going to be a super exciting race. A lot of aspects to look at, unlike the last few stages. And I really do not know who's going to win. Honestly, last round, I think we both knew it was going to be Talent Factory, but this round, I have no clear winner. I think we're going to have to go into qualifying blind, and then we see what happens more.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a true statement. It is anyone's game here coming into the third round, the third stage, I should say, of the season. But just to throw a spanner into the works, it looks like it is going to be a full wet qualifying session here in Spain. And one of the first full wet conditions, I think, back in Monza qualifying, was the first time we had rain, and we're seeing it again. And well, back all the way in Monza qualifying, there were quite a few surprises in the grid in qualifying. A lot of drivers finishing a lot further ahead than we would have expected them. So I think with how close the grid is looking today, plus the rain, it is going to be a super interesting qualifying session. You can see the drivers putting on their setups, getting ready for their first laps in this qualifying session. But obviously, rain poses a massive challenge. It struggles with grip, struggles with traction, struggle under braking. pretty much one of the most challenging things you can add to a racing circuit. So with that in mind, do you think consistency, I know it's not a thing we talk about a lot in qualifying, but do you think it could come into play here with these wet conditions?
Yeah, I really think it could more because I'm not sure if these drivers have practiced in the wets. I know that there was PSGL Spain last week, but not much of a wet track. So this is going to shake everything up so much. This is going to be certainly a very interesting 17 minutes we have ahead of ourselves, and of course the race as well. I didn't know who was going to win in the dry, and now in the wets, I'm completely bewildered more as the drivers head out, and now we just need to see what times they can set on the board. Of course, looking at the grid, honestly, I think anyone could surprise us today. But if I would have to make a prediction based off the last rounds, I think OP are going to get a 1-2 here. I know that they're strong at Spain, and I know that they've been doing a lot of preparation, so that could include wet weather driving. I'm not sure though. More, do you think OP could get ahead of Talent Factory in this wet qualifying? Do you think Talent Factory will get ahead, or maybe another team which will come out of the blue in the wets?
Yeah, I think OP today, I heard quite a few good things about PSGL, sending 16 flat in the dry. Sadly, that doesn't matter as much now that we are in, well, not the full wet conditions, it is the intermediate conditions. You can see the drivers out on track. We're just riding or watching TF Rudy on his outlaps, and you can see how much oversteer he's already having. But circling back to your question, I think OP could definitely be a surprise. You know, it's a new stage. These drivers have had 2 weeks now to practice for this round since we had the break week last week. And with OP, obviously they were thinking about using Asicome before he dropped out, so they're obviously getting a lot more serious in this competition, and I think we could see a competitive push from them. But how about we ride on board with Talent Factory Rudy, the man with the most wins here in CTC, and let's ride on board for a full lap of this Spanish circuit in tricky intermediate conditions. You can see it's a long pit straight, getting all the way up to 8th gear until you come to turn 1. It's late braking. 90 meters is the braking point that Rudy has chosen, and you can see using 6th gear on the exit, being really careful. 7th gear through here. He does not want to spin those rears. He just wants to get a nice and safe lap time on the board. As we come into turn 3, you can see missing that apex, really hard to keep the tires happy and not lock them up going into these turns, especially into this turn 4. You can see not able to hit that apex, but surprisingly, even after not hitting that apex, is able to get a good exit, which sets him up nicely for this turn 6, 7 and 8, I should say, which you can see getting oversteer on the exit, thankfully not touching the yellow curb on the outside of turn 8. You can see already having yellow flags in the 3rd sector. Drivers struggling to get their tires prepared and in the right temperature window. It's another lockup for Talent Factory Rudy. You can see really wrestling this car around the circuit. Big snap of oversteer coming out of turn 10, now into the very slow speed section of the 3rd sector. And in these wet conditions, it only gets slower. The final chicane now, not trying to touch any of these yellow sausage curbs. They can really unsettle these ground effect cars. But as we come out of the final turn, which is almost flat out in these wet conditions across the line, it is going to be the first lap time of the session. A 1:31.1 is the benchmark, but we saw how much Rudy was holding back, and well, you can see it in the form of OP Robbie, who's actually decided to go out on the full wet compound of tyre. He has gone to provisional pole position by quite a margin over Talent Factory Rudy, so maybe Rudy being a bit too aggressive going onto the inters. We saw how much oversteer he was having. It looks like the wet compound of tire is an option that's a lot safer, but also quite a bit quicker, as we see the 1 second gap between Rudy and Robbie. You can see both Talent Factory drivers have actually gone for those intermediates along with Larry Dennis, and they're just not where they want to be. As Axelino actually goes to provisional pole position by 5/10 of a second, just showing you how mixed up this grid is going to be for today's qualifying session. 29.7 and the first driver to get into the 1 minute 29s. But like I was saying, both Talent Factory drivers using the intermediates. Do you think they're going to try and switch to the wet compound tires now that they see everyone around them is a lot quicker with those full wets?
Yeah, I think it was cool by Talent Factory. Also in the chat, there was some teams uncertain of which tires to go on. They were asking for the tire thing. So I think, yeah, sure, I think it was just an experiment in these opening laps, and of course the intermediate runners have been having a lot of oversteer moments, understeer, so certainly I think they'll be boxing for the wet, seeing what they can do. And of course the top two are both on those wet compounded tires, yet we still see Talent Factory Ruddy in P3 on those inters, so maybe even though they aren't the strongest tire, he just has the raw pace here for Talent Factory.
Yeah, you can see his teammate actually setting another lap time. He finds himself into the 1 minute 30s and just 2/10 behind his teammate. But the intermediates not looking like the greatest tire as of right now. Talent Factory Rudy currently 1.4 seconds behind the OP driver of Robbie. The only OP driver to actually win a race in this CTC championship. Driver with plenty of pace and showing us why, as he's currently on provisional pole by 4/10. But those lap times are going to come absolutely tumbling down as we progress further into this session. You can see OP Kean is currently on an out lap. He hasn't been able to set a lap time yet as we reach the 11 minutes to go, and he's going to have to try and get a lap time onto the board. You can see he has found himself on those full wet compound of tire, and Talent Factory Rudy, Talent Factory Legend still both out there on the intermediate compound tires. I think they are both on their in laps. So we'll have to see once they come into the pit lane whether they come onto the full wet tires or stay out on the intermediate compounded tires. But having a quick look at the grid here, Janu, who a very quick driver for ET8 actually, has found himself in P3 so far in this session, ahead of people such as Debo for NLR, TF Rudy, TF Legend. So I think Janu is could be a star signing for ET8. He's showing great potential so far in this qualifying session.
Yeah, of course. The grid is so mixed up. Really, I wouldn't be able to tell you even after 20 rounds of these guys heading into this competition, heading into this round. I wouldn't be able to tell who goes where, but yeah, it seems like Janu is on that pace in the wet, and I think ET8, they've been doing bits recently. They've been winning in SRC, winning in the IKR PC Premier Division, so I think it's not too late for them to be challenging the bigger teams. They are, of course, in P5. They don't have that many points, but they could get close to Russo Esports this round if they have a very strong one, which it seems they are doing so. Talent Factory Ruddy still on those inters though, so Talent Factory, both drivers staying on those inters, so it seems they're a bit resistant maybe to head onto the wets, doing a different strategy, but Ruddy is boxing now, so perhaps they will finally decide to go out on those wet tyres. But for now, it is like I predicted. I don't want to speak too early, but OP leading the qualifying session. But of course, it's only one driver who's up there, Kian. This is something we don't expect from him that much. Of course, he's shown to be very strong at Spain, but even on those wets, going on board with him now, he's looking up left, right, and center, going off the track after that first chicane. Maybe, do you think that Kian could be off the pace in this wet session? Do you think maybe he is not showing his real pace? I'm not sure more, but I think that OP could be in a bit of a trouble here. But also Talent Factory, of course, because their drivers haven't shown to do the best laps, the ones we know they're capable of. So more, do you think that maybe Talent Factory and OP are out of this picture completely as a team? Maybe do you think NLR or ET8, as you mentioned, could start winning this round?
I think there's definitely a chance. ETA, I'm sure they'd be very happy with a first race win. But yeah, like you were saying, Kian just seems a little bit off the pace, along with the two Talent Factory drivers. But as of right now, pretty much everyone is on those full wet tires, apart from the drivers in the bottom three who are still testing the waters, quite literally, with the intermediate compounded tires. So I think we see a lap time on the full wet compounded tires from the two Talent Factory drivers. They could go a lot faster, but you see, we've been riding on board with OP Kian for about 2 laps now, and you've just seen the struggles that he had. Massive snaps of oversteer, turn 3, and out of that final turn there, he's struggling to control this car, and clearly isn't suited to these conditions as of right now. Currently down in P13, he may not even be able to find any improvement out there, but I'm sure he's got 7 minutes left in this session, and he's got time to get used to these wet conditions. He's just got to keep on pushing and try to find as much time as he can. But yeah, right now, not looking too good for him as he now drops down to P14. As we see some new drivers into the top 5, we see the two Scuderia Rosso drivers finding their way in the top 5. Max Gross on the full wet compounded tire gets into the 1 minute 30s with a 1 minute 30.3, but his teammate Scuderia Rosso Tim, and that's actually OP Robbie there, who spun on the exit of turn 8, and he is now DNF'd from the session. OP Robbie's 29.3 will be his final lap time in this session, and disaster for OP as they had a driver who had a chance for competing for pole position, but as you can see, the intermediate starting to light up as we see Tim in the top 3 with these intermediate compounded tires. So it seems like the conditions may be getting drier, and if that is the case, OP Robbie's time won't stand up in pole position for long, and OP Robbie, that's major disappointment for the team. They currently have one driver who's DNF from the session, and the other currently down in P17 and struggling to find improvement. So OP's day has gone from bad to worse, but I'm sure a couple of teams will be happy right now, one of which, Scuderia Rosso, I should say. 2 drivers in the top 5, and Tim continuing on these intermediate compound of tires, trying to find some lap time improvement, and it looks like he has, as he goes to provisional pole position with a 1 minute 29.1 for the Haas driver. An absolutely rapid lap time, and possibly a sign that the intermediates are now the tire to be on. You can see Janu has caught on to this. He is on an outlap on the intermediate compounded tires. BNRE Dennis is currently on the inters along with the ECOS driver of G. So I think drivers are going to start looking at it. You can see Dennis on 6-lap old intermediate compound tires finds himself in the top 4 position with just 5 minutes to go in this session. And with only that much time left, there's not going to be a lot of time for improvement. So do you think that time from Tim could possibly stand here for a pole position in this session?
This is crazy. I think it could stand. I think all the teams are panicking. I think they're going to switch to the inters, and of course all the successful laps on the wet will just go to the rubbish. They'll just be useless. That includes Axelino, that includes Robbie, of course, for OP, contending for the championship, but he's out, and he set his laps on the wet, so he won't be able to improve. But now I think Tim has given all the teams a wake-up call that the inters are stronger. Dennis on the 6-lap old inters improving on drivers like Scuderia Rosso, Max Gross, and Little Blocks. But I think Tim could well be in for pole, but I think all the teams now know that it is inters weather, so they'll go out and they will be able to do their final runs. It's just a matter of consistency, as you said at the start of the session. They need to be able to put in that lap when it matters, and we can see Legend actually finishing a lap. Let's go on board with him into the final corner. I'm not sure if this could be anything great, but we have to wait and see as he crosses the line. It's a 1:29.229 on the wets, and now the weather is coming. The weather is so unpredictable now. We have inters, we have wets, we have Tim going fastest out of nowhere, then we have Legend on the wet compound tire going second. So now all the teams, they just have to make a decision themselves, and let's see which one makes the right call, and let's see which team can get out on top. I don't think it will be OP or Talent Factory, to be honest. I think it could be Scuderia Rosso or NLR here. And now 3 minutes left of the session, the drivers will be starting their out laps. Let's see if we can catch anyone currently on a lap. Sanchowitz, he's on a lap, but he's on the wet compound tyre. He's improved by 1/10 of a second. But let's see if there's anyone else. It seems like Radies is also on a lap, and Mentos finishing a lap. But I think Sanchowitz could be in for a big improvement here as we stay on board with him now, heading into this corner. Very easy to spin, and especially in those wet conditions. If you touch that yellow part, it is over. Doesn't take that apex very nicely, but he manages to keep his car on the track and avoids any oversteer moments. We have yellow flags in sector 1, and it is Sanchowitz going purple according to the game. Stopping though, I'm not sure what is happening. Of course, the wet's very hard to drive in, but currently I think he still is on a lap, so we'll stay on board with him now as he enters the final section of the track, the slowest of course, and the easiest to mess up your lap, but also the easiest to gain that extra 10th, which could give you pole position. Going extremely slowly though, but he is going to complete the lap now, taking all of the curb on the right hand side. He's going to go up to the line. What's it going to be for Sancho? It's going to be 29.945, putting him ahead of his teammate Dennis, who's just had a spin.
Yeah, you can see now the wets and the inters quite similar in pace to each other. But I think the fact of the matter is we currently have a Scuderia Rosso driver on provisional pole position, and he is using those intermediate compounded tyres. So I think the intermediates are currently the tyre to be on. So Legend has been caught out. He's on the full wet compound tyre. So is Axelino. Sanchowitz, maybe they just feel more comfortable on that tyre, because I assume it will be a lot more stable with the bigger grooves in the tyre. But I think the inters, they might be a little harder to control, as we're seeing with Tim, but I think they could be the faster option. So let's ride on board with our provisional pole man as we enter the last minute of the session. Can he find any more time and possibly get into those 1 minute 28s and pretty much intimidate every other driver on the grid to try and set that final lap time and compete for a good position? You can see ET8 have dropped down quite a few positions, currently P8 and P9 after having both drivers in the top 6 earlier on in the session. You can see Tim coming through turn 4 now, and yes, this is turn 4, and you can see now making his way to this high speed chicane. Managing to control these intermediate compounded tyres quite nice. You can see snaps of oversteer here and there, but so far what we'll have to see is he is about to come out of the middle sector. Is he improving on his time? Can he get his first pole position for his team? He is currently improving by 2/100ths of a second. It might not seem like much, but when every other driver is struggling to improve, every 100th counts. SR Tim now coming into the final sector of this lap time, struggling with the oversteer on the exit, and in this slow speed it's going to be crucial to get a good exit out of the final turn. His teammate Max goes to P3 in this session. What kind of qualifying session is it going to be here for Scuderia Rosso? Across the line, can Tim improve? No, he cannot improve. He's down by 1/100th of a second. TF Legend currently on a lap, but he's down on his time by 8/100ths of a second. Axelino is up by 1/10 coming out of the first sector. Does he find any more time in the second? Yes, he does. He is currently 2/10ths up on his 29.4. Could find himself on the front row of the grid if he continues to improve like this. He's only just got a few more turns to go, and in these wet conditions, on these full wet compounded tyres, he's going to have to make every 100th count. But you can see it's wide heading into the final chicane. He might have lost the improvement that he had found earlier on, and you can see oversteer out of the final turn. I think he's definitely lost any sort of improvement. He cannot improve on his time, and so for the first time this season, Scuderia Rosso find themselves on pole position in the form of Scuderia Rosso Tim and Max getting P3 in this session. It looks like Scuderia Rosso are really starting to show everyone what they're made of.
Yeah, and that was insane. I think It's interesting now for the teams to look at themselves and say, well, what if we have drivers that could do better? Because a lot of them, they are playing conservative still, using the same drivers throughout the event. Scuderia Rosso, 2 debutants and 2 podium sitters heading into the race. SR Tim and SR Max Gross. That is a mega job from them. Of course, TF Legend is still holding on. So is OP Robbie. So we still see glimpses of the 2 teams, the 2 top teams there. Of course, Axelino and Debo Slayer also there in P5 and P6. So I think it's all to play for in this race. If the race is dry, then we could see a lot more going on, and Kian possibly redeeming himself, because the OP team, I do not think he had wet practice, but in the dry he is strong, and a very spread out grid, one which we haven't seen much before. So now we'll just have to wait for the race, see how it plays out, and let's hope that Scuderia Rosso can do themselves a favor and take some good points away and keep up their performance in this qualifying. They had a mega performance, and maybe they're hoping for rain in the race. I'm not really sure, because as commentators we don't get the weather forecast, but it is dry, and now we could see some of the drivers who are stronger in the dry misplaced because of their wet pace. So it's going to be a comeback for some, it's going to be defending for others, and it is going to be an entertaining race for all now. As we head into the first lap, more, I will let you do the honors.
Yeah, you can see we are now getting ready for round 7 and the first round of this third stage out of the 5 stages here in CTC. A lot of surprises in qualifying, as we were expecting with wet conditions. Talent Factory Rudy, the man who has won what I think is 3 races in this competition, finds himself down in P7 after struggling on those full wet compound tyres. But could we see redemption in this Grand Prix? We're about to find out. The drivers setting up their strategies, making those final adjustments to their setups as we get ready for this Spanish Grand Prix. You can see we have 5 red lights. They're gone, and we're away. What kind of start is it for our pole man? And you can see a bit of a delayed start there, but Tim getting a decent one up against Legend, and he's maintaining the lead coming into turn 1. You can see the OP driver of Robbie squeezing that is Debo to the absolute limit there, and actually getting up the inside of the other NLR driver of Axelino. He finds himself in a top 3 position. Tim maintains the lead coming out of turn 1. Max falling all the way down to P9. He's not had a good start, and that is now P10. OP Keane gaining positions. Talent Factory Rudy falls down to P8. OP Keane once again finding more positions into turn 4, has to defend from the 1 driver of Hadrich, and he defends that position 4, now continuing to gain on his competitors. He's got the 2 NLR drivers ahead of him, of Debo and Axelino. Up ahead we have the battle for the podium. Robbie getting nice and close to the podium runners, but that you can see there, that's a spin for Ace Tom. He's made a mistake down at turn 7 as we see a battle emerge between Talent Factory Rudy and Hadrich. Rudy getting up the inside coming into turn 10. He finds himself back where he started in P7, and Kian now really putting the pressure under the new debut driver of Debo, and you can see Debo getting a taste for what it's like here in CTC. OP Kian getting very, very close to the back and could be sizing up a move coming into turn 1. Tim leading off of the first lap of this Spanish Grand Prix, but TF Legend getting ever closer coming down this straight. You can see coming into turn 1 isn't quite close enough. Meanwhile, Rudy is close enough to Kian though, as he makes a move on the pit straight and gets past the OP driver. Talent Factory and OP have been battling all season long, and we're continuing to see it, but a little lower down than we're used to. You can see Rudy is actually outside of the second gap to the top 5. He's really going to have to push nice and hard now, and you can see that's a spin for the Mercedes of Binalery. Dennis in the background at turn 3. He is now down in P8, and his teammate has made a mistake too. Coming out of turn 4, he has crashed on the exit. Max has got a 3-second time penalty, and the full course safety car has been released. Wow, that was a chaotic opening few laps, but Tim maintains his lead off of these opening 2 laps.
Indeed, he does. Scuderia Rosso Tim, He had the pace in the wet, he has the pace in the dry. Screw Rosso seems they put a lot of practice into this event, but his teammate Max Gross, the first with a penalty and down in P15, some inconsistency from him. So now relying on Tim Screw Rosso to bring them those points. And of course, as I said, Kian making up positions. He's currently in P7 after just 2 laps of proper racing. Then we have Talent Factory Ruddy just ahead. So it's TF and OP both against each other still. We have P6 and P7, both TF and OP, and P2 and P3, both TF and OP. So 30 laps left of this race, and it could be Scuderia Rosso Tim who brings this home for Scuderia Rosso in P1. But TF Legend could have something to say about that. Of course, we only saw their pace in the wet, and now we just have to figure out who can do what in these dry conditions. But one thing I know is that Kian, he has the pace in the dry. He didn't have it in the wet, but I think that he could be contesting for a certain podium here. More, who do you think will win? Which team will come out on top today based off of these first 2 laps?
I mean, Tim has shown some excellent pace off of the line there, shown some good defensive skills so far, but we are only on lap 3 of 33, 30 more to go. But as the laps go on, it is looking better and better for the team in the Haskar this season. And Tim, his first race in this CTC, and he could be on for an absolutely mega result for his team. Like I've said many times before, they are definitely solidified in the top 4. They've been a team that have had some strong performances here and there, but just have not seemed to be able to put it all together each and every round. But this could change today for Scuderia Rosso. It's going to be close now, but we're seeing 4 teams in the battle for this race win. We currently have Scuderia Rosso in P1 with Talent Factory right behind them in P2. OP find themselves in a podium position, and NLR securing P4 and P5 coming into this safety car period. So it is truly anyone's game. We usually see 3 teams battling for the lead. We're now seeing 4 as we continue on with this safety car. You can see quite a few drivers actually got penalties under the safety car conditions. Mentos, Patuxai and Grosjean all getting penalties, and I think YCN actually disconnected from the session. Hopefully he'll be able to get back into that AlphaTauri of his and continue on with this race. But you can see ECOS have had an absolutely mega start for their team. Both drivers gain 8 positions after starting P18 and P19 back row of the grid. They now find themselves in a points-paying position in the form of Ray G. So I think that's really impressive from ECOS. And who knows, maybe we could see them further up in the points. We also have one Hadrich in the points, currently P8 and ET8 in P9, and Janu falling down to P16. A little bit of inconsistency from him, losing 3 positions off of that race start after starting P13. But is there any teams right now, apart from Scuderia Rosso, I should say, being the obvious one, is there any teams that have really surprised you off of this race start?
Well, I think NLR, they've been making moves together as a team, and they're the only team which are currently together with both their drivers, so they can use this. And look at all the drivers weaving, warming up their tyres, this all in sync, and we're going to get started. And let's go on board with the one who will decide the safety car restart. He's already going incredibly slow, and we're at the start of the lap, so this could be a pretty long lap now as we go on board with SR Tim, taking his time and making sure that the drivers behind him know that he won't be going anytime soon, and he'll just be waiting, warming up his tyres. Oh, we are at the end of the lap. Sorry, I saw that wrong. And he's out of the final corner now, so we're just going to have to wait for him to restart. And we have seen these slow restarts cause chaos in past competitions, but he's going to go right now on the main straight, not choosing to go in the corner, which could have been a bad move from him. But OP Robbie and Talent Factory Legend going side by side into the first corner. We have OP Robbie on the outside, Legend on the inside. Legend, he's left the space. OP Robbie gets past. OP Robbie is round, and that is the OP driver down into P6. It seems that he only got a bit of oversteer and tapped on the back. So that's not ideal for him at all now, as he's going to have to fight back through the grid, and his first rival's going to be Talent Factory Ruddy. Talking about Talent Factory Ruddy, he's going to go on the move on Debo Slayer now in the NLR car, and he's on the outside going to this corner. Can he get the move done? Still on the outside, he backs out of it now as Debo Slayer stays in front, and that is OP Kian down to P6. OP Robbie. Oh no, it was Robbie. He did have a spin. Sorry, I got that mixed up. So Robbie did have a spin, and he's down to P17. Kian's in P6, so this is not at all the race start OP would have wanted, but Talent Factory not having the ideal start either. But of course, they will be gathering more points, and that's a further championship lead. More, what do you think of that safety car restart?
Yeah, that's a real shame from OP. Unlucky in qualifying and now struggling in the race. Just about caught that with the onboard of Legend. It seemed Robbie had got on the power just a bit too eager with the throttle, had that oversteer, and then the tap on the back from Legend, which I don't think Legend really could have avoided, is what sent him round. So Robbie, after that mistake coming out of turn 1, finds himself down in P16, but he's got every chance to recover. We still have plenty of laps of racing to go, 27 to be exact, and we're seeing quite the battle emerge. SR Tim maintaining his lead and maintaining a healthy gap to 7 tenths, around 7 to 8 tenths between himself and Legend. He is out driving one of the fastest drivers on this grid currently. Absolutely amazing stuff here from Tim so far. We also see NLR, a bit of a return to form. They have one driver on the podium and Debo defending from Rudy behind. NLR have been a team where usually both of their drivers are quite close together, which allows them to use teamwork, unlike some other teams such as Talent Factory, who have their drivers quite far apart. 2 cars between the Talent Factory drivers, and obviously OP with Robbie making that mistake. It's around 10 cars between himself and Kian. But yeah, teamwork is a massive thing in the NLR team. They've used it to their advantage for many rounds in this CTC, and I'm sure they're going to be using it here in Spain. But you can see how much pressure Debo is under from Talent Factory Rudy behind. Talent Factory Rudy going for quite the lunge. Wasn't fully alongside going into there. Thankfully gets left the space from Debo, but Debo maintaining P4 for now, keeping up the pace with his teammate, and just making sure that he stays within that crucial DRS range. The ECOS driver of Ray G finds himself in P8, but that's a spin there for the Scuderia Rosso driver of Max Gross, I think that was, or just possibly a mistake coming out of turn 3. And you can see it's a bit, the whole grid in a bit of a Scuderia Rosso sandwich. One driver at the back, one at the front. So a little bit of inconsistency from them. You can see Robbie making up the moves to try and get himself back into a points-paying position. But right now, I think we have to touch on it, as actually, before I say that, Janu makes a massive dive going into turn 10. You can see it's 3 wide between these drivers. Snap of oversteer from Robbie and squeezing Janu into the Alpine. The Alpine gets spun between contact between himself and Robbie, and you can see Robbie is driving extremely aggressively here. He wants to get past these drivers as quickly as possible to try and reignite that flame of his race, but not going too well for him so far. He's been involved in a couple of incidents. You can see Rudy getting the move done on Debo finally, but at what cost as he finds himself outside of that 1 second gap to Axelino ahead. But one thing I was going to touch on is Tim, after 8 laps of racing, I know a couple of them were under the safety car, but he's keeping Legend behind him. This is absolutely insane pace from the Scuderia Rosso team, and I think they can be really happy with this race no matter what happens after this stage.
Yeah, of course, they know that the pace is there. They had the qualifying session of dreams, of course, the first time we had wets in CTC. We have a lot of yellow flags, of course. Spain has always proved to be a difficult track, and it is living up to its name, of course. But Talent Factory Legend is closing in, but doesn't seem to be that close. He's within the DRS comfortably. Doesn't seem like it's going to make a move anytime soon, though, as we have a look now at the tyres, all on the hards until Razy G So there won't be any differing strategies. Just try take the hard as long as possible. But I think Legend could be catching. Of course, Tim won't have any DRS, and this straight could prove handy for Legend, gaining a lot of time there with the DRS. He's going for the move already, and he's made the move before the corners even started there. SR Tim down to P2, just as you say. How he's been so spectacular, but of course he still is, and P2 is not a shabby position whatsoever. But now he has to look out for Axelinho, who will be defending from Tan Factory Ruddy, and of course Axelinho will be trying to keep Ruddy behind because he needs his teammate to catch up and get the maximum possible points for NLR. They are of course a team, and that's how they get their points. Max Gross having a catastrophic race here as he gets a 3-second time penalty once again. And it could be safe to say that he'll be retiring from the session in the boxes now. And yellow flags in sector 1 and 2 because of him. Legend going wide though, and he could see track limits playing a factor now, but Legend 3/10 faster than his previous lap times. This is his current personal best. It could be the fastest lap of the race. And we look at Scuderia Rosso Tim. He's 7/10 back, not being able to keep up. Legend, he wants to pull out of the DRS so that he can just cruise to victory here. His teammate Ruddy will be making those moves. And of course, back to Robbie, who said was being very aggressive. He's getting closer and closer to it. Tuxa, yellow flags in sector 1. And who's that? That's Lickle Blocks, who has had a spin right at the pit entrance. Maybe he had a lock-up entering the boxes as we go back to the top drivers here. And a lot separating Axelinho and Tim now. But still all within the DRS, and that is a driver. I'm not sure who that was, but a Haas, who I saw in the middle of the track there, having some issues. I'm not sure what happened there, if it was only on my screen. But that was incredibly strange, and it's good that all the drivers avoided that, because that was very weird. I'm not sure what I saw, but Tim now still following Legend, gaining back the time now, and Axelinho still within the DRS. The top 7 all within DRS mode. Do you think that Legend can keep Tim behind, and do you think that Tim can keep Axelinho behind? Currently muted, Mo.
Sorry, we all know Legend is obviously one of the fastest drivers on this grid, and might go as far as to say maybe one of the fastest drivers on PlayStation. So we know he's definitely got the pace to keep it behind him, but I think it now comes down, or keep Tim behind him. But I think it comes down to race management now. Who manages their tyres the best, their ERS levels, and what kind of strategy are these drivers going to go for? Are they going to go for the undercut? Are they going to go for the overcut? It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And you can see here at the tyre choices for a lot of drivers who haven't really had a chance to look at them, as there's been so much action so far. But a lot of drivers starting on the hards. You can see the ECOS driver of Ray G starting on the mediums. That could be a reason why he's so far up the grid. And Janu also on the medium compound tyres, the rest on the grid on the hards. But actually, I think that Haas there you were talking about at turn 3, that was the retired car of Max Gross, not actually ghosting. OP Robbie making some more moves this time on the Ecos driver of Ray G. He finds himself in a P9 position, but the gap between P8 and the top 7, who are all in the DRS train by the way, just goes to show the margins here in CTC, with one actually finding themselves in that leading DRS train. But 5.3 seconds between OP Robbie and one Hadrich. So Robbie needs to find a way past Batuksai and then has to push on to try and catch up to those top guys. But yeah, I think like I was saying, actually you can see Robbie is driving super aggressively here. He's actually rear-ended Batuksai there, and I think we could see quite a few post-race reports about Robbie, as we've seen so much with him. He's just driving super aggressive. He wants to get past these guys. You can see he's going to go for an absolute send coming into turn 1, and Batuksai wants absolutely none of that, lets him go coming into turn 1. One Hadrich now struggling to keep in the DRS of the top 6, but he's pushing on nice and hard to try and maintain the pace with OP Key. And P7 in this race would actually be quite the result for One Esports. They currently have 3 points in the championship, so this 6 points would do them, definitely do them some good. And one Hadrich showing what one are made of. able to keep the pace with this leading DRS train. But SR Tim now, you can see he's just staying in the DRS of Leisure. He has no reason to rush into an overtake, and you can see he's got an ERS advantage of about 20% over Talent Factory Legend, and he's able to keep Axelino behind. So I think Tim's race management is really going to come into play here, and we'll have to see if that ERS management, that tyre management, is going to be what wins him this race. But obviously, Mateo, we know ERS is a big thing around this Spanish circuit, especially with that pit straight spanning over 1 kilometer long. Do you think with that massive ERS advantage that Tim has now, if he can maintain it, do you think that's going to be a crucial factor in this race?
I think it could be, of course, but I think they are around the same ERS. Tim has a bit more, but I think Legend also has a bit more raw pace, should I say, so I think it equals each other out. But as long as he can stay in that DRS, he has the whole race to plan a move, and of course all it takes is one straight to make that move, and the race is won on the final lap, not the first lap. So he's just going to stay behind, save his tyres, and not go for the move just yet. Unlike Robbie, as we did see, playing it very aggressive. He wants to get himself through the grid, really showing his passion and motivation, and he doesn't want to take all this practice and just lose it instantly. But we do have news on what happened to Scuderia Rosso Max Gross. It seems he did have the pace in the tries, but we see Scuderia Rosso France saying he disconnected and he could not change the tyre pressures on his car. So Scuderia Rosso, they would have had both drivers up there in the podium position, so this could be really interesting for racers to come to see what they can do, and will certainly be interested to see what they can do in Imola. Another circuit, very tight circuit, and it's going to be fun there as well. But we still have more than half the race to go. Here is Spain, and a lot of action to proceed. Kian getting close to Debo Slayer now, and it's OP versus NLR versus Talent Factory, just like in the standings. And then we have One Hadrich, the One Esports team. They're doing well. They're pretty low down in the standings, but of course they did join late. Currently P9 with 3 points, so if they can start getting these performances and gathering some points at the midfield, they could get themselves up a few positions. But now we just have to see, to look at the gaps. Everyone within DRS, but no one really within striking distance of the car ahead. So it seems now it is all relaxed, and the drivers just trying to keep their cars on track, preserve the tyres, preserve the DRS, and plan to make a move on the driver in front to get maximal points for their team. Mentos SX having a spin, and Spain is of course very difficult track, easy to spin even if you're a complete professional. And we see Lickle Blocks ghosting through the car of Grosjean, who now taps him for that voice crack. And Legend still in P1, SR Tim in P2, 7 taps behind now, and he is gaining on those straights, which means he can keep within the DRS. And now it's just a waiting game, see what they can do. But for now, I think it will be Legend who stays in front. Axelino struggling, and Kian looking to make a move on his teammate. Do you think that NLR, do you think they're back to their prime Bahrain performances, or do you think maybe they're still where they were last stage more?
I think realistically, over the course of the season, I think they've maintained the pace that they've had. Even in Bahrain, when they won that race, I think they still, I think that day was actually quite special for NLR. But for the rest of the season, they've had quite similar pace. They've been able to stay within DRS of, you know, guys such as TF Rudy, Talent Factory Legend, OP Key, and OP Robbie. They've been able to keep up with the DRS of all of these guys, but they just have not been able to make those crucial moves to save as much ERS. They obviously have to use a lot of ERS to keep up with these guys, and you know, they have the pace to keep up with them. They just don't have enough pace to actually overtake them on track. So I think that is the thing that really affects NLR. I think if their drivers were, and as we're speaking of NLR, Debo out of the final chicane has a mistake, and he now falls down to P8 behind OP Robbie, and actually decides to come into the pit lane after that spin, as he was already on his way in. So he is now going for an undercut after that mistake in the hopes of not losing too much time. And this could save him a little bit of time, as you see Ray G making the move on Batuksai. But yeah, that's a big mistake there for Debo. Hopefully this unscheduled undercut will help him out in this Grand Prix, as obviously if he had continued on to the pit straight, he would have lost a lot of time because of his exit. So that could have been a smart strategy there from Debo, but it's quite an early stop to be stopping for the medium compound tires. But we're obviously seeing people like Ray G stretching these medium compound tires for 15 laps. So he's doing an absolute monster stint on these medium compound tires. But yeah, like I was saying with NLR, they have the pace to keep up with the top guys. They just don't have enough race management to actually overtake them in the grand scheme of things. But they do have the power to maintain their positions once they get them, and we're seeing that right now with Axelino, although no one in the leading DRS train really going for any aggressive moves. But Axelino on the podium and doing quite nicely for himself. OP Keane, as soon as Debo actually had that spin, sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, but we're now seeing a lot more people come into the pit lane. The hard runner of OP Robbie boxing for the medium compounded tires, hoping to see where he comes out relative to the NLR driver who had a spin at the final turn. So let's see, as we see OP Robbie coming out of the pit lane, we also see Devo coming down the pit straight. Is Robbie actually going to jump him here? It's going to be close, and it looks like the OP driver has jumped the NLR driver. So that is that you can see how much that mistake from Debo has actually cost him there, as Robbie was about 8 seconds behind the leading DRS train. So Debo finds himself in a very bad position now, and he's going to be battling it out with Robbie for what will be a net P7, because he's very aggressive behind him. He's got the warm tires. Meanwhile, OP Robbie, he's going to be in that tire warm-up phase that we're getting used to on this Formula 1 22 game. But we've now seen Debo come in for an undercut. We're now seeing NLR Axelino come in for the undercut. And, well, it looks like Talent Factory and Scuderia Rosso are happy with their pace right now. Do you think this undercut is going to work for the NLR drivers and OP drivers?
I think that OP Lars knows what he's doing. But I do think as well that he needs to make a risky strategy, so that Robbie can get back into the points and into the competitive positions as he comes out now in P7. So I think that it could pay off, it could not. It's just a matter of waiting and seeing what they can do now. Robbie comes out in P10. Sorry, I was once again on OP Keane, as both in the Red Bulls, of course. But now we focus on Talent Factory. The drivers could reunite, and this would be Talent Factory back in force together as a team. And of course that's more dangerous than ever, as now Talent Factory looks to gang up on SR Tim as they follow him through the final sector here. But Tuxai 14 seconds back, and then we have A-Stomp, who's the last one needs to box. So Axelino is currently the first of the runners who have boxed ready. He's on the mediums. He's going to look to go until the end of the race. They will be wearing a tiny bit towards the end, so it will be interesting to see how the undercut pays off. SR Tim into the boxes, and Talent Factory are taking it very long. We have seen the strategy. They're going to try the overcut. OP have tried the undercut. Now they have to go for the opposite, of course. OP Robbie making a move on Ace Grosjean, of course, once again going for that aggressive strategy and making sure he can make those moves. Not any patience, and he'll just have to hope he does not get reported. Of course, hard racing, but there is a fine line between hard racing and dirty, of course. But now Talent Factory Ruddy, his hopes are going to be to try get back within the DRS of Legend, and Axelino is just going to have to fire through 35% ERS. He's just going to have to go as fast as he can to see if this undercut can pay off, and if he gets within the DRS of SR Tim, who's the new leader now of the people who have boxed, then he could have a chance of undercutting both Legend and Ruddy. Lickle blocks first lap of the race with a 1:19, 1:21, but he's out of the points paying position. So a lot of teams good in the quali, bad in the race, and of course vice versa. And we did not know what to expect, but one thing is for sure, Talent Factory, they're still going strong with these same two drivers. They know what works, and they're sticking with it, and it's paying off. Of course, consistency from the two being key to their success, as Ruddy now boxes, and then Legend presumably will go the lap after to avoid double stacking. And now we can see P3 to P6 is all within DRS. Ace Tom holding up the guys on the fresher tyres, but we have had our time and it's not on the track. And now this could very well benefit people with Nat Box, and that includes Talent Factory Legend. We're just going to have to wait for the call from Codemasters. It seems nothing's going to happen just yet, but that would have been very much ideal for Legend. Still yellow flags though. The game hasn't decided, so we cannot make up our mind just yet, but it seems that it is all green and good to go. So the undercut from Axelinho still has worked, and we can see on the back of Talent Factory Ruddy already he's boxed, and straight away having to hold him up. And then we have OP Kian going for the move. It's 3 wide here. Kian getting the best of them, still 3 wide. The Red Bull has the inside line, of course. Will banging with Talent Factory Ruddy, really showing each other who's boss. Axelinho, he's spun around, he's out of the picture now, and it's back with OP and Talent Factory. A lot of rough driving here. The two teams, of course, colliding versus each other. They know that they need to race each other seriously, and it's really unfortunate. The leading teams getting their drivers spun out, and a lot of unfortunate events. But now Legend is going to finally head into the boxes, so we can see who is going to lead after this pit stop phase. It's going to be interesting to see if Legend's overcut worked, if Kian and Robbie's undercut worked, as now he exits the boxes, and we come on board with Tim, who's exiting the final corner. Flat through here, as George Russ would say, and he's onto the main straight. Can he come out ahead of Legend? Seems that Legend will come out, and by quite a margin, 2.0 seconds. So more. Sorry, I've been getting a bit carried away here. Do you think that this undercut works, or do you think that Legend made the right call?
I think Tim, that undercut has worked out quite nicely for him. As you can see, he's dropped the DRS to Kian and Rudy behind after that big battle between the two, and Tim has Legend all to himself. He has the lead in his sights, and he has the chance to get his team their very first win in this competition. We've seen NLR win in Bahrain. We've seen Talent Factory win 5 on 5 different occasions, 3 for Rudy, 2 for Legend, and we saw OP Robbie winning a race in Monza. Is it now time for Scuderia Rosso to take that top spot on the podium? It's going to be an intense final 12 laps, and OP Kian isn't out of the picture just yet. 1 second is the gap between himself and the Hash driver, and he could find himself within DRS range coming onto the pit straight. It's going to be close, and I think he was just outside the DRS for this specific straight, so he's going to have to push on, try and catch up to Tim ahead. Legend has the fresher compounded tires, so he will have that extra bit of grip, but Tim, being in P2, will have the power of the DRS 4 now. One thing I'd like to touch upon is NLR. You cannot help but feel bad for them. Debo having that spin out of the final turn cost him a top 5 position. Axelinho getting caught up in the action between Rudy and Kian. Really unlucky for him, and I think, yeah, it's just unlucky is the word I would use for NLR today. They were looking at a possible podium, but now looking at a P7 and 8, which is a shame to see, as they had a lot of potential in this race. The ET8 driver of Blocks retiring from the Grand Prix. But now that NLR, they've pretty much lost both their drivers from the top 5 train, it's interesting to see one Hadrich. He's a driver who is extreme. As you saw, he was able to keep up with the top 4 earlier on in the race. He has fallen off just a little bit, tried to go for an undercut, didn't work out from too well, but he's in a top 5 position. One currently have 3 points in the championship standing, so imagine what 10 points could do for them. It's OP Kian though. He has spun out of the final turn. He's got a snap of oversteer. He's hit into the wall. He has front wing damage, and he falls behind his teammate along with the 2 NLR drivers as Debo makes his way up into P7. OP are having a rough day along with NLR. OP Robbie DNFing and qualifying with OP Kian just about getting into the top 10. Then we saw OP Robbie having a spin from the top 5, and now once again we see another OP driver spin in the form of Kian out of the damage. this is a big turning point in the race, because now it's just Talent Factory versus Scuderia Rosso, I should say. Keep getting that mixed up. I don't think that was. I wasn't expecting to say that today.
Yeah, of course. A lot to take in now, but I think all we can say is that Spain is a difficult track, of course. Kian, very experienced, just showing that no matter how skillful you are, you can spin, and we do see someone spin once again. Yellow flags in the second sector, and I'm not sure who that was. I think it was maybe Rady G, but yellow flags in sector 2 and 3, and Legend is absolutely cruising, fresher tyres than everyone else on the grid, and he has SR Tim out of his sights now, as he's just going to try take it until the end in this absolutely wild weekend. Wet weather qualifying, and the top teams spinning out contact collisions, and of course something we cannot underestimate is the stewards' decisions. They will make or break someone's race, and for example Robbie, who's got himself into a good position, P5, he's made some very questionable moves, so maybe he could have been reported. Maybe he will get a penalty post-race. We do not know. Key in boxing now. Of course, he did lose his front wing, and he's going to go and try salvage some points for his team. And Talent Factory, another exquisite weekend for them. And as much as this race has been a roller coaster, somehow they can still get a 1-2 here and get maximal points for this weekend, with Legend having the fastest race, having the fastest lap of this race, and it's very possible that in this following stage we could crown Talent Factory as the Constructors Champions here, because they've done such a great job. OP, they have prepared, but of course you really don't know what's going to happen in these 1.5 hours, and things haven't gone their way. Talent Factory, consistency over everything, and they've kept it clean, they've kept their noses clean, and it's going to pay off, as SR Tim now is in the sandwich, and this is really strong points for Scuderia Rosso, who are another team who've upped their game, of course, in previous competitions as well. They got a 1-2, I remember, in IKR Future Stars Division, and in PC Premier in IKR as well. A strong result, so a lot to expect, of course, as it's a long season, and a lot of chances for teams to change their strategies, to change which ones are first, which ones are second, but now we just wait more.
Yeah, definitely. Scuderia Rosso Tim, currently P2, and Talent Factory Rudy pushing nice and hard to try and catch up to the back of the Haas driver. It's all Ferrari engines on this podium so far, but it looks like Rudy just about breaching that 1 second gap. He finds himself about 9/10 behind. Is he going to get the DRS now for this pit straight? It's going to be quite close. He needs a good exit, and you can see snap of oversteer for Tim is what allows Rudy to gain the power of the DRS for this pit straight. So Rudy is now going to be putting all the pressure under the Scuderia Rosso driver. Scuderia Rosso's best finish was back in Saudi Arabia when Rudy Hullett got the first podium for the team in P3. Tim looking to beat that best finish in his first race in CTC, currently P2, but he now has one of the fastest drivers of the grid on the grid, Talent Factory Rudy, to defend from. So it's going to be tough for him. You can see Janu making moves on the Alpine driver of Ace Tom. Nice little battle here. We haven't really noticed, as there's been so much going on at the front, but you can see Ace Tom, YCN and Janu all battling it out for P8, which is good points for these midfield teams. You know, Janu could get 4 points for ET8. They're trying to get themselves within the top 5 in this championship, as I'm pretty sure TTG owns that P5 position, although they've been struggling quite a bit for pace. As you can see, Batuksai was their only driver for them today, and currently 4 seconds off of the points paying positions right now. One Esports, I think they are going to be extremely happy with how they've done today. One Hadrich currently in a top 4 position. Not only would that be their best result, but it would be absolutely crucial for them in the championship. They currently have 3 points to their name. They could make it 15 or possibly 16 after today if YCN can maintain that P10 position. That is a yellow flag for Ray G, the Ecos driver, who was in the points earlier on in this Grand Prix, finds himself in P12 after starting on the mediums and going to the hard compound of tyres. That now allows Batuksai to try and push nice and hard to catch up to the top 10. Gap between himself and the top 10 is 4.6 seconds. But while they battle it out for those points paying positions, we're seeing the battle for P2 in this Grand Prix. Could Talent Factory secure their second 1-2 in this championship, or is Scuderia Rosso Tim going to get his team's best finish in this competition? It's going to be close for these final 6 laps, but I think we're definitely going to see Rudy try and go for the move a couple of times if he can. You can see Legend is able to pull away. He's got the gap up to 3.2 seconds, so he's got good pace over Tim as of right now. But we're now seeing Rudy nice and close to the back of the Haas driver coming out of the final turn. Could he possibly be looking for a move coming into turn 1? Not using any of his ERS. He's not looking too hasty, but he could be going for the move anyways with the power of the overspeed coming into turn 1. He gets that move done down the inside of Tim. Tim now just has to maintain the power of the DRS, manage his ERS properly, and he could still be looking at a P2. But even not, I think we still have to acknowledge a podium here for Scuderia Rosso. They've had glimpses of pace in previous rounds, and well, they're now looking to show it again. And I think Tim will definitely be a driver that we'll see return to this competition, don't you?
Yeah, I really think he will be. And Scuderia Rosso, they're just finding the right mix. They've really experimented, and I think Tim is certainly one driver that they'll need to use and they'll need to cherish, of course. I think he's new to the team, and they are getting a lot of drivers, and Tim seems to be a gem, and they need to really they need to use him and need to make sure that he can get the best results for the team, as now he's going to try keep up with the Ruddy, and it is going to be an intense final few laps. Ruddy has less ERS, but he has a teammate there, and if Ruddy's in trouble, I'm sure that Legend could push back a bit to try help him out with that DRS, which he does not have now, which could be the cause for why Tim is closing in so much. 3:10 is the gap. BNL Dennis retires in the boxes, and that is double BNL retirement. Sanchowitz and Dennis, we can't forget for them, they didn't have the greatest of qualities, they didn't have the greatest of races either. As NLR as well, they've been a bit in the background now, but Axelino, he's close to Robbie, so they could be getting some decent points there. And if we look at OP, really not the greatest of weekends. They prepared a lot, they had 2 weeks, but of course Talent Factory, they're 2 drivers committed to this competition, and they have the consistency, they have what it takes to win. Of course, PSGO practice would have come in handy last week, as well as Legend is going to try cruise to the line now, as Tim is going to try keep up, of course, and this is one of the only battles we have going on. However, the NLR duo closing on Robbie, but Robbie has shown to not care. He's going to do whatever it takes to maintain that position. So this could be a very interesting battle as we approach the final 3 laps of the race. We're into the 30s.
Yeah, it's going to be very close for these final 2 laps. We see the battle between the 2 NLR drivers and OP Robbie for a top 5 position in this race. And we're also watching Tim trying to charge on and get P2, stop Talent Factory from getting another 1-2. But I think if we're talking about team results here, Talent Factory currently storing the competition for these past 6 rounds, and they're looking to do it again. Currently in position 1 and position 2, they're looking to extend their championship lead once again. And since we're on round 7 of 15, halfway through the season now just about, these people like OP and NLR, they really need to start picking it up here if they want to catch up to Talent Factory in this competition, because it looks like Talent Factory is just running away ever since round 2. I think after today, if things stay as they are, Talent Factory Legend will be getting his second win in this competition, and that will make it a grand total of 5 wins out of 7 for Talent Factory, a team that's been pretty much dominating this competition. Although we have seen those moments, we've seen OP Robbie win a race, we've seen NLR Axelino win a race. We just need these drivers just need to try and keep up their consistency and get another race win under their belts to try and eat in to that gap that Talent Factory has to the rest of the grid. But as of right now, you can see Axelino actually going side by side with Robbie. He's decided now is the time to make the move. He's burned all of his ERS. His red light is flashing. He's below 10% ERS. And now NLR lead over OP. And you can be sure that Debo is going to be putting all the pressure under OP Robbie. We only have 2 more laps to go. SR Tim also looking to get into P2, and the 2 NLR drivers looking to beat OP in this Grand Prix. Well, no matter what, as long as Axino and Debo are able to finish in the top 7, they'll be able to get more points than OP, with obviously OP Keen struggling down in P11 on those soft compound of tyres after making an unscheduled pit stop to repair his front wing. But we now seen that Axelino has had the pace to overtake OP Robbie. Do you think Debo could possibly get ahead and make and once again, for the second time in a row, get both NLR drivers in P5 and P6?
Yeah, I think they could. Axelino, he could slow down Robbie, and that's all Debo there would need. Of course, they have Alex the G Engineering, and he's got those big brain moves, so we'll just have to wait and see. But Robbie, he definitely does not take no as an answer to an overtake. 32 of 33, that's the lap number now. And as Robbie tries to make the move on Axelino once again, who managed to get past, but we're not going to rule out Tim just yet. Could be saving some of this pace for the last lap, getting a big moment of overtake. That's certainly not going to help. He needs to stay consistent these final few laps. It's the last showdown, it's the final showdown, and it is where all the points are won. He could have gotten pole, but he really needs to convert this, and P2 would be exactly what he wants, helping out OP as well, reducing the points for Talent Factory, who are currently going to get maximal points from this chaotic race weekend, as OP Lars has mentioned. As we look further down now, Dabo Slayer is pretty close to Robbie, but not as close as Robbie is to Axelino now, as we see Legend heading onto the finish line for the final time before he finishes the race. 1:18.276 is the fastest lap of the race. Grosjean, he could try steal it with those new soft compounded tyre. I think that's exactly what Ace are looking to do now, as they have Ace Tom in P9, and he's close to old Janu, so we can't rule off a move from him, as well as now Robbie onto the straight for the last time. This is the last time he can make a move. He's very close. He's going to send it on Axelino around the outside, leaving Axelino absolutely no space. Axelino has spun, and that is an outrageous move by Robbie. That is chaotic. That is mental. I'm not sure what to say. I don't want to say anything too bad, but that was not the most responsible move. Maybe it was a bit of desperation, but he certainly got the position he wanted, as now Dabo Slayer goes for the move. He's forcing Robbie wide. He's just seen what he's done to his teammate. No remorse, no mercy now, as they both play and they see what they can do. Dabo Slayer forcing Robbie wide, and now Robbie down the inside. The drivers, this is a huge battle going on here. We're going to have to stay on board with this, because this isn't going to stop anytime soon. Legend, he's going to cross the line, but we're still going to stay tuned with this battle, because it's certainly not going to end. Robbie, he gets his way. Kian does not get his way. He's down in P11, out of the point staying positions. Legend wins the race. It's Talent Factory 1 and 2. It's Talent Factory maximal points here in Spain. SR Tim, a valiant effort into P3. Robbie and Debo Slayer still going at it. Robbie spun out Debo Slayer's teammate Axelino, but he finishes in P7. Certainly not what he wanted, but it could have been much, much worse. And this will be hard work for the stewards, and definitely one of the most chaotic races I've seen in CTC, and extremely entertaining, but the drivers may have differing opinions now. We see the first glimpses of rivalries and more. What do you have to say about those final few laps?
I mean, absolutely chaotic. Axelino just wasn't able to keep control of the car, being pinched on, obviously, those inside sausage curbs of turn one, slammed into the side of Robbie. Robbie, thankfully, getting away with it. Axelino, not so lucky. But I think we have to mention a few performances in this Grand Prix. Obviously, 19 drivers attempted, only 14 of them finished, 5 DNFs, but that isn't going to take away anything from these results. Talent Factory scoring another 1-2, their second of the season, and extending. Well, it feels like we've said it almost every week now, but they do extend their lead once again in this competitive team championship. Scuderia Rosso getting their second podium of the season. First, it was Rudy Hullett. Now, Tim finds himself in that P3 position. A great result for Scuderia Rosso. They'll be really happy with that one. Also, one Heidrich finds himself in the top 4. Great points for his team. One are going to be really happy with that performance, and they definitely should be. I think quadrupling their points in this championship. So great job from Hadrich. And obviously OP Robbie getting P5. Obviously, as commentators, we don't want to give our opinions too much, but I think there might be a post-race penalty or two for Robbie, which could drop him down a position or two. NLR once again finishing beside each other, this time sadly outside of the top 6, although Debo does find himself in the top 6 on his debut in the competitive team championship. We have Janu for ET8 scoring 4 points for the team. That will not go unnoticed for the McLaren team. Ace Tom finds himself in the points, and one actually have both drivers in the points, and that will be their double points finish. So I think teams that will be happy with themselves: Talent Factory, Scuderia Rosso, and also One Esports. But yeah, like you said, one of the most chaotic races in CTC that we've seen. Maybe not a bad thing, though, as it did produce some great racing action. But, Matteo, if you had to give your driver of the day to one of these 14 drivers, who would you have to give it to?
I'm going to go with Scuderia Rosso Tim. I think he made a valiant effort against Talent Factory. Of course, he was alone. And with all the pressure that was on him after that great quali, he certainly performed. But I don't want to leave one Hadrich unnoticed. One have gone very much unnoticed this season, and Hadrich P4 ahead of teams like OP and NLR. They could be proving to make an impression here and to not be a force to be reckoned with. But now the chat is getting active. Grosjean does steal the fastest lap, so not maximal points. 1 point taken off from Talent Factory. OP only getting 1 point scorer, and that's in P5. But of course, Robbie could even be penalized. So definitely a weekend to forget for outplayed racing. But more if that's all we want to say. We will see you next week for Imola. Hopefully another entertaining race, of course, as commentators. Maybe as teams they don't like it, but a lot of entertainment today. I certainly enjoyed it. The rivalries are forming, and this is something which could spice up the competition even more here. And of course, it's not called competitive team championship for nothing. The stakes are high, the competition is higher than ever, and Imola will be a very interesting track to test the drivers' performance, to test their consistency, and to test their side-by-side ability.
Yeah, like you said, the pressure rises, but we all know that diamonds are made from pressure. And, well, we're seeing that in the form of people like Tim and Hadrich. But that is going to be all for this Spanish Grand Prix. Make sure to tune in to the second round of this third stage, the stage of the European circuits. Like you said, Matteo, it's going to be Imola. It's a fast track, plenty of bumps, plenty of turns, and plenty of overtakes to be made. I hope you all enjoyed this stream, and I definitely hope to see you next week. Goodbye for now.